Hi, and welcome to the Secrets of the Go See online workshop with Aaron Marcus. Aaron is America's premier acting and commercial modeling career coach. He's also a top selling author and founder of HowToModel.com, one of Google's top ranked acting and modeling career sites. Aaron was cast as Dr. Stephen Leopold on NBC's show Do No Harm. He had a scene with Judi Dench in her new film Philomena. He worked in Atlanta on the feature film Almanac and in two independent films, Eugene and A Modest Suggestion. He's been a full-time actor and commercial model for over 27 years. To date, he's been cast over 1,200 times. You've seen Aaron in projects such as Burn After Reading, Law and Order Criminal Intent, The West Wing, Crybaby, America's Most Wanted, Molson Beer, McDonald's, Kmart, A Modest Suggestion, HBO's The Wire, and Disney World. Aaron has also appeared in print ads throughout the United States, Europe, the Netherlands, and Asia. He's written what many consider the most important book for commercial modeling, entitled How to Become a Successful Commercial Model, and it's now in its 5th edition. He also writes and publishes the Tear Sheet newsletter, a quarterly commercial modeling and acting newsletter. He's given over 500 workshops in 4 countries, and he also offers monthly online workshops for actors and models, as well as giving private one-on-one online coaching sessions. Aaron, we are excited you're here as our host, and we're excited to get started with the workshop.
Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you, I am really very excited. I love doing workshops. I love giving out information to people and sharing experiences that I've had. So the very first thing I'd like to do, besides welcoming you, is to let you know very specifically what I will be sharing with you today. So in today's schedule, we're going to be talking about, and I'll do this part briefly, just what is commercial modeling. I just want to make sure that everyone is very clear on what commercial print is all about, what you need to do before the go-see. And these are the kinds of things that will just be very helpful to you. It will help you prepare. It will also help your agent, which is something that's in your best interest as well. What to do after arriving at the go-see. And I can't even tell you how many go-sees that I have attended and still do attend. And it's always amazing to me that people, the majority of the people just show up, have a picture taken, and that's it. And there's really no thought process, there's no preparation, there's no thinking about what they want to accomplish there. They're just kind of talking with other people. So this is really, it's very important information for you. What to do during the go-see. And that also is crucial. Once again, most of the people, when you attend a go-see, you're going to find most people, they walk in, have their picture taken, and that's it. What do you want to do after the go-see? And this is a way of learning more about how to run your business, which this is. This is a business. And then how to best prepare for your next go-see. So those are the major topics that I wanted to discuss today. And like Joel had mentioned, if you do have questions, it would probably be best if we could just hold off until the very end. And then what I always do for all of my workshops, whether they're in person, whether I'm doing a private online coaching session with you, or all of my online workshops, I don't go by my clock, and I've never done that. I don't say, okay, well, the workshop today is 12 to 1, and then I'll look at my watch and say, okay, 1 o'clock, we're done. I finish the workshop when I feel like I've given you everything I could possibly give you, and whenever your questions stop coming, that's when I end the workshop. So if it takes 15 minutes to answer all of your questions, we'll end then. If it takes a half hour, if it takes 45 minutes, I've blocked out hours today to make sure that I hear all of your questions. Now, just so you know, I can't guarantee that I can answer them for you. I will do my best, but sometimes I do get stumped and there are some questions I just don't know the answer to, in which case, just so that you know, I'm not going to make something up. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything. No, I don't. But if I can't answer it for you, maybe I can at least help guide you as to where to find the question, and we can talk about that at the end of the day. So let's first get started with just making sure that you understand what is commercial modeling. Now, I mean, everybody knows about the fashion world, and those are typically very tall women who are normally between 5'9" and 6 feet tall. Normally, their measurements are 34, 24, 34. You have to have a very specific look depending on the agency. For guys, you're looking at being between 6 feet and 6 feet 2, wearing a size 40 jacket. And in the fashion world, basically what you are doing is promoting high-end designer clothes. You are a walking coat hanger, and your job is to make the clothes look great. And just so you know, the reason why you have to have those statistics is because the designers create samples in those sizes because they think that that's what's going to make the clothing look the best. So essentially, the models have to fit into the sample sizes. They don't make sample sizes for the models. There's a whole other world of modeling out there, and it's called commercial modeling. And some commercial models are drop dead gorgeous, incredibly handsome. You will see commercial models, and these are high-end commercial models doing, Gap catalogs, maybe doing cruise line ads where, everybody is beautiful, incredible bodies, and it runs the gamut. Sometimes they need somebody who is overweight. Sometimes they need somebody who's short, somebody who's tall, somebody who looks like everybody's next door neighbor, which that's me. And the thing that's really cool with commercial modeling is everyone is needed, and most of the very successful commercial models are also actors. Look, you don't have to be the greatest actor in the world, but you do want to be able to show very specific and very believable expressions and emotions when you are both attending the go-see, when you are doing test shots with photographers. That's when you're creating some of your own photos for your portfolio or your agent's website, and when you're on the set doing an actual job. And we're going to go into a lot more detail about that. But also, unlike the fashion industry, where, I mean, if you're over 21 years of age and you haven't already made it in the fashion industry, it's going to be very, very difficult. And of course, there are always some exceptions to the rule. But for the most part, it's a young person's game. Commercial models come in all ages. I've worked with infants. Kids are 2 months old, 3 months old. And I've worked with people in their late 80s. So it's available for everybody. You will find commercial modeling work all over the place, no matter what country you're in. And even in some very small markets, you will find really good commercial modeling work. As a matter of fact, some of the best jobs I've ever had came from very small markets that you would never even attribute to having much in the way of commercial modeling work. And there are other online workshops that I've done where I do spend an entire workshop just teaching you about how to go about finding the work, how to market yourself. And actually, if you just go to the store page on howtomodel.com, you can see a lot of other workshops that were created that will give you, more specific information about how to go about doing that. So basically, for commercial modeling, you see us everywhere. You will see us in newspaper ads, non-fashion magazines. You'll see us on posters, on billboards, as a matter of fact, but let me just clarify that for a second. It was really interesting. I remember doing a workshop in Hawaii. I remember doing a workshop in Alaska. And unless things have changed, the time when I did those workshops, they did not allow billboards to be placed in those states. So if you are living in those states, then you're not going to see much in the way of billboards. But for every other place, you will see us on billboards, on the internet, on packages of products. and on the side of a bus. You see us all over the place. And anyhow, I love doing commercial modeling work. I find it really rewarding, really enjoyable. I get a chance to use my acting skills because it's not just promoting high-end designer clothes. It's promoting many, many different kinds of products and companies and organizations. Okay, so that's what commercial modeling is all about. So let me show you just some quick examples of different types of ads. So as you can see here, this is exactly what I am talking about. You will see everything from, like for instance, on the left side of the page, you can see an ad that I did that says, "Be a kid again." And you might have seen this. This is on my composite sheet. And this was an ad for Disney World. And the whole concept of this ad is, look, you were younger, you brought your family, the kids were little, you had a great time at Disney World. You know what? The kids have gotten older, you've gotten older. Let the kids stay at home. Why don't you just come back and be a kid again? And so spent the day on the teacup, doing other rides, doing shots with Mickey. It was cool. I was flown down to Orlando and spent the day doing that. But the interesting thing is, as you can see, it's not fashion. You know, I'm not promoting high-end designer clothes. I needed to be able to show real excitement that I'm having a great time, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you how to do, and more importantly, how to do it at the GoSee. But you can see there's a wide range of everything from a guy who, on the right side, a guy who has kidney issues, and so that's a medication, and he's very concerned. And then below that, there's a doctor who is, interviewing a patient, and there's somebody who's frustrated, and something for nationwide insurance, where I'm very excited again. So as you can see, in the commercial modeling world, there are many, many different looks that are needed, and that's why you want to learn how to prepare before the GoSee and what to do during the GoSee itself. And just to quickly show you, there are other aspects to commercial modeling, and quite often you will attend a GoSee. If it's a hand modeling job, sometimes you have to show up and show your hands. And so here's an opportunity to see how hand and foot models are actually used. This one I thought was pretty interesting. There's a guy that I know, and if you look at the right-hand side, that's pretty amazing. He's got very talented feet. And this is a hand modeling job that I did, and it's for a utilities company, and you get a rebate when you use energy efficient materials or appliances. And as you see, I'm holding $50 here, and we spent hours. We spent literally a couple of hours. I was holding the money in different ways, trying to give them many options. And so there's not a whole lot of preparation you can do. It's not like you can, show your hand and try to make it look more personable and warm and friendly or fuzzy and more frustrated. It's your hand. But there are many ways that you can hold the $50, and I just kept trying out different ideas, and this is what they wound up with. Okay, so what do you need to do before the GoSee actually takes place, before you attend? So what I did was I came up with a list of questions that you absolutely need to ask your agent. And one thing I just wanted to mention, even before I go through this list, this is something, and I know actors and models make this mistake, and I've heard this complaint from agents about their talent. So let me share this with you so that perhaps it will be of help to you, and then we'll go into the specific questions. You have to be reachable. Your agent has to be able to get a hold of you, whether it's sending you a text message on your cell phone, whether it's sending you an email, whether they actually call you. And look, if you are a full-time student, I know most of the people that I know who are working as actors and commercial models, they are either full-time students or they have full-time jobs, and they periodically take time off and do auditions, do the job every once in a while when they come up. Still, you have to be reachable. So if you are in the middle of class, look, you're not going to ask your teacher to, hey, would you mind stop talking for a minute? I just got to take this phone call for my agent. That's not going to happen. But at least after school, you've got to check messages. and make sure that you do get back in touch with your agent as soon as you possibly can. And here's another little trick that I learned from an agent, because they really were complaining a lot about it. Sometimes actors and models like to be very creative. We're creative people. And that creativity sometimes spills over into your outgoing message, whether it's your answering machine, whether it's your cell phone. That's not the time or place to be creative. You don't want to do monologues. You don't want to do stand-up comedy. You don't want to have an intro to a song that goes on for 20 seconds. What you want to do is make it short, sweet, and to the point. And I can tell you what I do. I will have in my outgoing message, hi, it's Aaron Marcus. I'm going to be booked out from July 1st through July 8th. You can leave your name, area code, and phone number in a brief message, and I'll call you back as soon as possible. Bingo. I let them know when I'm not available. Sometimes I'll promote myself a little bit. Hi, it's Aaron Marcus. Just did a scene with Judi Dench in her new movie, Philomena. Just shot a feature in Atlanta. I'm not available these days. So sometimes I will let people know about something that I've just done. I think that's helpful to help promote yourself, but it can't be long. It's got to be a very short, outgoing message, because agents are very busy, and if they have a lot of phone calls to make that day for a particular go-see, if it's way, way too long, they'll probably hang up and go to somebody else. So short, sweet, to the point. Let them leave their information, and then make sure you get back in touch with them as soon as possible. Okay, so now let's get into the specific questions that you want to ask your agent. First thing, and once again, I'm getting this information from agents who have shared with me some of their complaints with their talent. It's not uncommon for an actor or model to call the agent back. They get a message, hey, call me, I've got a go-see for you, or an audition. And they call them back, and the agent says, okay, listen, next Tuesday I've got a go-see for you that's going to take place. And then all of a sudden the model goes, oh, hey, would you just hold on for 1 second? Let me just go grab something to write with. Well, don't do that to the agent. Have all of your materials in front of you so that when you call back the agent, you're ready. You can start talking to the agent and get the information. So what I suggest, make sure you've got paper. If you're writing down the name of the photographer or the casting facility, the location, you want to also have certainly a pen, something to write with. That's really helpful, and a calendar, just in case you're not available. So you can let your agent know. So you also want to find out what's the date of the go-see, and just as important, when is the shoot date? Because if you're not available for the shoot date, even if you're available for the go-see, chances are the agent's going to say, well, don't bother going, because if you're not available, why go? I have had some agents say to me, look, still go, because sometimes dates get changed, or maybe the agent knows something about this job and the photographer had mentioned to the agent, look, we're thinking about doing it on a certain date, but we're kind of up in the air, we're not really sure, in which case I would understand that the agent would still tell the model to go. But tell your agent you're not available on certain dates, and let the agent decide whether you should still attend. Here's another really important part. You want to find out, what is this ad all about? Who is it for? Is it a company? What's the company? Is it a product? What's the product? Is it an organization? Who's this organization? And the reason why I highly stress that you ask this question is because maybe you don't want to be associated with this particular product or this ad campaign. And look, I know plenty of actors and models who refuse to do ads for meat products. Maybe they're very strict vegetarians or vegans, and they do not want to promote eating meat. Maybe, which could also be leather, who knows. It could also be, maybe it's alcohol. You don't want to promote it. Maybe it's cigarettes. Maybe you don't want to be associated with that. Maybe it's a certain illness, it's a pharmaceutical ad, and you don't want to be the poster child for a certain kind of illness. And I can tell you there have been very few jobs that I've turned down in my life. I have turned down a couple. As a matter of fact, I turned something down very recently. And without going into all the details, it was a funny shot. Um, I could see why people would think that it was funny. It just had some overtones in it that I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be the guy. And I thank the photographer very much for thinking of me, because this photographer is somebody that I've worked with, I found on my own, and uh, thanked him. But I said I really just didn't want to do it. More specifically, an ad that I did turn down, just so you know, and this was a number of years ago when my kids were pretty young, and it was a great ad campaign. And the ad campaign was about child abuse. And the whole concept was, you got to be very careful out there today. You know, Normally people think of child abusers and molesters as being very scary, evil-looking people. Well, the sad reality is anybody can be a child molester, even a nice, friendly guy like me. And I didn't want to be cast as the poster child for being a child molester for a number of reasons. Um, one, certainly, I didn't want my kids' friends to be saying, boy, Mr. Marcus seems like such a nice guy. I can't believe, doing these things. That was part of it. The other part, it was a business decision. And I was concerned, look, most people are going to understand it's a commercial model, it's an actor, they get it. Um, when you see Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, he doesn't really, eat people. He's just a phenomenal actor, and from the very, 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 very short time that I saw him on a set, he seems like a really nice man. Sometimes with commercial modeling, you might not know. Sometimes people don't realize, oh, that's a model. So, if I was up on billboards and posters as being, this kind of evil guy, I don't know that I would want my face up there. I also was concerned that it might hurt me for other jobs. And I work with kids. I've done ads for Parents Magazine and Crayola crayons and Toys R Us. And even if people get it, that, I'm a nice guy, but they see my face up there connected with this ad, it might not be good for business. So it's really important that you find out what the product is all about and you make a decision. And trust your instincts here. Whatever your beliefs are, stay with that, because those things can haunt you for a long time. And it's your reputation. And if your beliefs are not aligned with this product and you don't want to be associated with it, tell your agent. You also want to find out what type of character you're going to be portraying. And the reason why I say that is, and I can tell you, there are different philosophies about this. Some people will say, look, if you're going in to read, but whether it's an acting job or a commercial modeling job, you're going to a go-see and you are going to portray a doctor. Look, you don't need a lab coat. You don't need a stethoscope around your neck. You don't need tongue depressors, in your pocket. People get it. They understand. Some people will say, look, just go in with a T-shirt. Who cares? Flip-flop shorts. They'll see whether you're a doctor or not. That is one philosophy. It's not one that I follow because, and I'll tell you why. My feeling is, number one, whether it's a go-see or an audition, I'm going to feel more like a doctor if I have a lab coat on, or at least a suit, if nothing else. And no, I'm not going to bring in all those other things because sometimes, and it gets tricky. You don't want to insult either a casting director, you don't want to insult a photographer who understands what a doctor looks like, and you don't have to have booties on your shoes and a cap on your head and all that stuff. But I do like to give the feel of that's the guy. When I walk into the casting and I'm having some pictures taken of me, I want the photographer, I want the client to look at me and say, yeah, of course, that's the doctor. So here's what I do. And it does get a little bit tricky. And I'm just using a doctor as an example, but this can hold true for anything that you are attending a go see for. I will bring a lab coat with me and I'll have it in my bag. And right before my shot, I'll walk in with it and I'll say, hey, is it okay for me to wear a lab coat? Now, I still have a tie on. I will take off my suit jacket if I do wear the lab coat because doctors aren't going to wear both in most cases. And I'll ask, is it okay to wear a lab coat? And I can tell you probably about 90% of the time for me, they say, sure, that's fine. There have been a couple times where they've said no. And I don't argue, I don't battle, I don't understand why, but that's fine. I don't want to create any kind of problems there. And I look like a doctor when I put on that lab coat because even if the people at the advertising agency, the photographer, maybe they're all very creative, they can see it. Maybe if this is a pharmaceutical, maybe somebody who is head of a pharmaceutical company, they might be great at making medication. They might not be that creative when it comes to looking at talent and being able to see that person as a doctor. But if I walk in there and I look like a doctor, absolutely. So that's why you want to ask what kind of character you're going to be portraying. And I would dress the part. Probably the best advice is don't dress inappropriately. That's how I would put it. Even if you don't want to go through the research of putting together the right wardrobe and things like that, just make sure it's not inappropriate for that particular character. Okay, some of the other questions that you definitely want to ask your agent. Where is the go-see taking place? Now, it's funny because years ago, you would ask, okay, so where is this happening? And then you would ask the agent for directions. And you just don't do that anymore. It's our responsibility. There are so many different ways of whether you can go to Google Maps on your cell phone, whether you have a GPS, whether you can go online and go to MapQuest, whatever it is, you can easily find out. But check it out ahead of time. I would also check it out with a couple of different places just to make sure that you do know where you are going. It's easy to make a mistake with that, and if you don't put in southeast and you put in southwest, I mean, you could wind up being incredibly late, which you don't want to be. You also want to find out what are the times of the go-see. Now, here's where go-sees are different than auditions in most situations. And once again, there are some exceptions to the rule, but typically, for a go-see, you are given a wide range of time to show up. It's not unusual. You might get a information saying, well, the go-see will run from 10 to 4, in which case you can show up anytime between those hours. It could be 9 to 11. It could be 9 to 5 for 2 days. I have gone to go-sees, and unfortunately, it happens a lot, I find, in New York, where I will go attend a go-see, and they could literally have 100 people all trying to get cast as a doctor. And everybody in there looks like the doctor. So that's why you just simply have to show up anytime during those hours because they're seeing so many people that particular day. So make sure you do have those hours. Every once in a while, they do have a very specific time, like for auditions, at least with union jobs. It's different for non-union, but if it's a union acting job, you will be told your audition time slot is 10:15, 11:30, 12:10. You're given a very specific time slot. Typically for go-sees, it's anytime during the hours that they are seeing people. And this is the time where you are going to tell your agent if you're not comfortable working on a project or maybe you're already booked out and you can't attend. This is the time to do it because, look, and the agent might not be thrilled if you say, look, I'm a strict vegetarian. I don't want to do something for a fast food restaurant because they are promoting, eating meat. The agent might not be happy, but what you don't want to do, and I know this does happen, is a model will attend the go-see, book the job, and then go back to the agent when the agent calls and says, hey, congratulations, you booked the job, and then the model goes, I've been thinking about this. I really don't want to do something for a fast food restaurant. It just kind of goes against, my beliefs here. Don't do that, because there are a lot of people who have to say yes. There are a lot of people who have eliminated tons of other models, and they've chosen you. And then to have your agent have to call back the client and say, look, I'm really sorry, the person changed their mind, it's going to make the agent look really bad. It's going to make you look irresponsible. Your agent's not going to be happy. So even if the agent isn't happy that you're turning the go-see down, that's the time to do it. So at least that way your agent knows. Okay, so those are the questions that you absolutely want to be asking. Now, let's say you've gotten all the details, you have prepared, you've brought in the wardrobe, you look right for this particular part. Now you go to either the photographer's studio, or sometimes they will rent out a casting facility. There are lots of photographers, especially today, who either don't have their own studio, or they've chosen not to use their studio for the casting. Maybe it's not big enough, maybe it's not convenient for people, who knows, whatever the reason, and they'll rent out a space just to have the go-see. So the very first thing is, you know what the character is, you know what you have a general idea of what they're looking for, you know what the product is, you know what's happening here. Then what I would do is, the very first thing is I walk in, and before I sign up, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, very first thing is you walk in, and there'll be somebody behind a desk, there'll be somebody there who's part of the casting, and I like to ask, do you have a copy of the layout? Now, the layout is a description of the final ad. Sometimes they will scan an existing photo that looks pretty similar to how the ad's going to appear. Years ago, they would just hand draw out the images so that you can see it. Let me just show you one. So here's a good example of a layout. And this is somebody, get a second opinion for this particular computer, don't get locked in, and it shows a model with their hands on bars as if they were in jail. So you want to ask for the layout, and if they have one there, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, it will give you a little bit of a better idea of what they're looking for, what kind of expression. Now, sometimes things change, but at least it will give you something to play with. And then what's good is I kind of walk off to the side and I think about, okay, so this is the kind of emotion they're looking for. This is what the person looks like. I make sure that my hair looks that way. If they're wearing glasses, I will put on glasses. And I will bring a couple pairs of glasses to every go-see just in case the character is wearing glasses. And because I want to look as close to the layout as I possibly can. Okay, so once I've seen the layout, and once again, if they don't have a layout, it's no big deal. Then what you want to do is you want to fill out the form. There is a form that you will get, and once again, you might attend a go-see and maybe they don't have the models form. Most of the time they do. And let me just show you what a generic form will look like. It will have like the name of the product, the casting date, you're going to put in your name, your phone number, your agency, might be your agent's phone number, whether you are a union member, and the reason why they want to know that. Sometimes it's just a generic form, and it might be used for an audition as well as a go-see, but also sometimes they want to know if you're a union member, because even though this is a modeling job that you are trying to book, they might be thinking, oh, this could wind up also being a TV commercial. And that's happened to me a number of times. You do the print job, you do the modeling job, and they decide to shoot a TV commercial, and sometimes they'll use a still image from the shoot as part of the TV commercial, or sometimes they'll hire you to be in the TV commercial itself as the actor. So they need to know whether you are a union member or not. And then they want to know your stats, your height, your weight, for neck size, glove size, hat size, and so they'll have a whole list of things, eye color, things like that, shoe, dress size, blouse. Um, and then sometimes they'll ask, are you willing to shave? Um, are you willing, are you available to shoot on these dates? And so the other thing too is, especially if it deals with insurance, if it deals with a very specific product, sometimes they will ask if you have any conflicts. Do you have any ads that you've done for competing companies? Now, hopefully that has already been asked of you from the agent. Sometimes they don't know, but when you are attending the go-see, sometimes they will ask you that. And be honest. Do not lie about that. And I have heard of some horror stories of people saying, well, I don't want to lose this job. I don't want to tell them I just did, an ad for a specific fast food restaurant. And I know this is a competitor, but I want to do both. Well, let me just tell you, for a variety of reasons, I think morally you don't want to lie because it's not a good way to run your business. And from a business point of view, you don't want to lie because if you do wind up booking the job, and you do the shoot, and now they're spending, I don't know, who knows, could be $50,000, $75,000 running this, international ad campaign, and all of a sudden they see that you are, almost like the spokesperson for a competing company. There could be some real serious legal issues there. So just be honest with all this stuff. So that's the form that you fill out. Still, once again, you have not signed in yet. Now, when I'm talking about signing in, it's just a plain sheet of paper. It could be like a legal size sheet of paper, lined paper, and you just write your name down. And that way they know who to call in next to have the digital shot taken. So my suggestion is don't fill your name onto that sign-in sheet until you are 100% ready. Fill out the model form. Sometimes they will also ask you to write your name on just a plain sheet of paper with a magic marker that they will supply, and you will simply hold it up for the very first shot, and you'll put it up pretty close to your chin. They'll shoot you, they'll have your name, and that way it's a marker for them so they know who you are, and then they'll do a couple of shots afterwards. Sometimes they ask you to do that, sometimes not. Be prepared. But once again, the important thing is don't write your name into the sign-in sheet until you're ready, because once they call you, you've got to be ready. And you don't want to be in a situation where they call you and you're just not prepared. Give yourself your best shot at doing this and giving the right look. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Then what you're going to be doing, and also so you know, one of the full-day workshops just deals with commercial modeling and this recall method that I've created. And so the shorter version here is what you want to be able to do is, once again, use your acting skills to produce not only the look, the emotion, the expression that you need for the go-see, but this is something you're going to be using when you're on the set as well. And so the short version is this. If you're told you need a certain look, you think of a real experience in your life that will give you the emotion that they're asking for. Then what I do is I will turn away from the camera. My body is still in position to wherever they want me to stand. Sometimes they'll have a mark on the floor, a piece of tape. Maybe you're seated, and they'll tell you what direction to look in. And then what I will do is I will look away for a second, because I'm trying to remember a situation, something in my history that will give me the emotion that I need for this particular shot. And then I will say a word, a trigger word that helps bring back that experience for me. Then I look up, and the shot is done. That is how you create the right emotion. And once again, if you go to the OnStore link on my website, you'll see a number of workshops that have already been recorded that just walks you through this whole process. And I've spent a good amount of time doing it. But that's the short version. You think of an experience, you'll say very softly to yourself a word or two that will help trigger it, bring the look up, and that's the shot. There are two times, by the way, where you don't want to use this technique. One is if the photographer says to you, I don't want to hear anything. And this has happened to me a couple of times in my life, not very often. I don't really get it because I'm going to say something very softly. It's just looking away. Wow, that's great. And then I look up and I'm all excited because I said, wow, that's great. But if they do say, I don't want to hear anything, look, they're hiring you, they're paying you to do this, so they're the boss, and you listen to them. Then what I do, it's called an internal monologue. I'll think the words to myself. But you've got to have some brain activity going on. If you do what a lot of people do and you just kind of give, let's say, I want to see a nice smile, and you just do, it's kind of like this very boring, silly, blank smile, and people will see it. The camera will pick it up in a second. Your eyes will look dead. There's nothing going on. There's no life. There's no interesting brain activity happening. You're not going to get the job. So what you have to do is think the words, feel the emotions, and then it will shoot out of your eyes. That's how you get life. That's how you get energy. That's how you get a believable look. And when you work this way, not only will you be showing a specific look that's believable, you're going to show a whole variety of expressions and emotions. The only other time you do not want to use this technique is if you are working with another model who just isn't capable. And to make a very long story short, and this only has happened to me a couple of times as well, I was doing an ad and it was supposed to be a husband and wife. We're in love with each other and we're out celebrating and we're at this beautiful, very romantic restaurant. And for this particular one, I was doing what I would do for any other kind of acting job. And I put my hand across the table, and the photographer said that I could play with this. And I talked to him about it. He said, oh, yeah, sure. So I put my hand across the table, and I'm holding this woman's hand who is supposed to be my wife. And I'm telling her how much I love her, and I just feel this warmth because I'm thinking of my wife and, how much I love her, and it feels so special being out with her, and I'm just so thankful she's, that we've been married for a long time, and I'm just doing all these really, really nice things. And in the middle of all this sweetness, she literally yanks her hand away from me, and she looks at me, and she goes, what are you doing? And I was just shocked. And I looked at her and I said, I'm acting. I said, you're supposed to be my wife, right? She said, yeah. I said, well, we're supposed to be in love with each other, right? I said, yeah. That's all I'm doing. Just trying to make it very realistic for this ad. That's all I'm doing. I'm very happily married, not trying to do anything else. And she, oh, okay. That's the other time. You stop doing this method and you just think the words to yourself, because there are some people who just aren't capable of working this way. So let me just show you very quickly some of the results when you use this technique during a photo shoot. And I'm just going to zip through a bunch of these things. And so as you can see, this guy, this is the really big chill. It's a IMAX movie, and this guy is having a great time and he's freezing. This guy is a frustrated guy. He's a consumer because at all the other banks in town, they just don't treat you really well. And then when you open up this brochure, I'm very happy because I go to this particular bank and they treat me like a family member. I'm frustrated. You get the monkey off your back. This was a national ad campaign for a bank. Another kind of frustration, as you can see, sometimes they need things that are very real. Sometimes it's over the top. Sick. There are a lot of sick ads. You see them year-round in magazines, and it can be anything from fevers to coughs to allergies to colds, the more serious kinds of illnesses. Maybe you hurt yourself exercising. The trick is to make yourself feel really sick. And in this particular one of the things that I really like, I was able to get my eyes to kind of water up a little bit, just because I was feeling, trying to feel so miserable. Another kind of sickness. And you saw this on my composite sheet. That's powerful. This is what by the way, this is what a bad liver looks like. It's a medication for people with bad livers. And the makeup artist she was just phenomenal. She used an anatomy book and she made my face look like a bad liver. And here's the doctor. This guy is doing okay. Hey, I'm a happy patient. But you'll see here is when you're using this technique, whether it's at a GOSI, whether it's on the job itself, you will be able to show a wide variety of expressions and emotions. This also is very different from all the other things. This is a very confident guy, owns a big .com company. That's very different as well. I got to tell you, how women walk around with long nails, I don't know. My goodness, I broke a nail once opening up a door and was poked my eye out once because my eye itched. Whoa, that's a little bit hard to look at. Molson Beer, I'm the rock grunge guitarist, and so for the GOSI, as you can see what I look like, don't have long hair, don't look like a rock grunge guitarist, but what I did at the GOSI was I just let loose. And fortunately, they were able to see I could pull it off with the right wig. They had they sprayed me with some warm water, so I got some perspiration, and it was pretty good. Just on a little bit of a side note, for the job itself, when we're on the set, I asked if we could put some rock music on, and I was just screaming along with some rock music, and that was helpful. But for the GOSI, I looked like a pretty straight guy, but I was able to let loose, and that's how I got the job. And once again, you can see here, letting loose sometimes is just really important. You saw that one earlier. And actually, just so you can see, this particular job for Disney World helped get me this Virginia Lottery ad. They could see from that shot, this guy can pull it off, got called in for the GOSI, and boom, there's the ad. This guy just won $250,000. So as you can see, using this technique will be really helpful to you at GOSIs. Now, having said that, and these things happen, I'm really excited about getting this job with the Wall Street Journal in New York, and go up to New York, and the photographer asked if I would hold this paper a certain way. And so what I always do, and I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit, it's not necessarily for the GOSI, but it's when you're on the set actually doing the job, and I just want to share it with you. So if you're holding a paper, what I always do is, I'll hold a paper and then I find landmarks for myself, because if the photographer likes this specific angle, this location, I'll see, okay, my right hand is lining up with this, my left hand is lining up with that, and that way, even if I move a little bit, I can come right back in here, all day long and hit that spot for the photographer. So I held it up, and the photographer said, "No, actually, I need it up a little bit higher." So, oh, okay, so I'm holding it up. Does this work better? Nah, I need a little bit higher. I said, really? He goes, yeah. So I'm holding it up. You don't only see my face. But they hired me. You get paid just as much whether, they see your face in that one or not. And here's another one. Once again, I love doing this ad. It was a pharmaceutical for people with depression. They must have loved my back. That's all I can say. And I can tell you, I have gone to GOSIs. And sometimes it is a little bit strange. I might travel 8 hours, 9 hours, or longer sometimes, going to a GOSI, and you walk in there and they say, okay, and I'm facing the camera, and they say, okay, would you turn around for me? I said, oh, you want to see my back? Yeah. And here we go. That's the shot. So you don't even see my face in this one. Sometimes those things happen. But I was still very, very thankful that I booked the job. So just to kind of wind up this little section, this is a good example of being able to switch those kinds of emotions, because in this one, this is a Pennsylvania lottery, and it's a Valentine's Day, nothing major as far as money goes, but you give her chocolates, that's what you get. You give her flowers, whoa, that's what you get. But when you give her the Pennsylvania lottery, watch out. But the reason why I'm showing you this is a good example of sometimes needing to be able to show very different types of emotions during the shoot very, very quickly. And that's why spending a lot of time practicing doing that homework assignment will help you tremendously for not only on the set, but at the GOSI as well. So that way when you ask the photographer, what they're looking for, that you can produce. So The one other thing that I always do at the go-see, right before I start talking to you about after the go-see, so I'm standing on the mark and I will ask the photographer, even if I've seen the layout and I think I know what's going on here, I ask, so what specifically are you looking for? And the photographer might say, well, you're a happy patient. And I'll say, okay. And that doesn't really tell me very much because when somebody says to me, okay, I want you to look happy, or I want you to look sad, or I want you to look angry, it doesn't really mean anything to me because I don't know what's going on. If I'm a patient and I'm happy, well, did I just find out that I thought I had this horrible illness and everything is okay? Okay, that's one kind of happiness. Maybe I'm happy because the results of this exam went great. You know, maybe, who knows what the happiness is. So if they say you're happy, they say you're sad, ask. See if you can be more specific. And maybe what I would do is I'd say, well, could you just like tell me why I'm happy or why I'm sad or why I'm frustrated? um, and just be prepared for any kind of response. The response could be anything from, I don't know why you're happy. You're happy. All right? You're happy. In which case, what you have to do is you make a decision. You decide why you're happy. Might be right, might not be right, but the reason why you make that decision is because it will be more interesting. And the same thing, and it holds true for acting auditions. If you try to not make a mistake and not do something that's incorrect, it's going to be boring. You're always much better off. Make a choice. Do something specific. It will grab their attention. Because if you're not given the specifics of what they want, you're guessing. But so take a very educated guess. Make a decision, and that's what you want to do. So ask somebody what they're looking for. If they give you a hard time, just back off and you make a decision. Sometimes they will give you something very specific that will be invaluable to you. A perfect example of that, let's just say you are able to go to a lottery, go see, and you walk in, so what are you looking for? Hey, well, you're happy. You just hit the lottery. All right. So the follow-up question is, hey, well, I'm not sure, like, how much did I win? That's a crucial question. If I won $1,000, I mean, that would be incredible, but it's not a life changer. Did I win $20,000? Once again, man, that would be unbelievable, but it's not a life changer. Now, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. Okay, well, that can change, that can alter your life, and you're going to give a different kind of response. So ask the question. Don't battle, don't start saying to the photographer, hey, how do you expect me to, give you a look if you're not going to give me the information? Don't get into any of that. Ask the question, listen to what they have to say, and then give it a shot and do what you think is best. Okay, the go-see is done. You did all the preparation, you went there, you prepared, you signed in when you were 100% ready, you gave a couple of great looks. Sometimes it could be one digital photo. Sometimes they want to do profiles of you. Sometimes they want to see your back. Sometimes it's, just a full body shot after a close-up. Who knows what they're going to ask? Everyone is different. Now the go-see is done. What I like to do is send a note to the agent. Just thank the agent for giving you the opportunity to attend the go-see. And the reason why I do that for a few reasons. One is I really am appreciative. I mean, there are thousands of people that could have been sent to this. There are thousands of people that agent could have, and maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know what I mean. There are a lot of people they could have chosen. They chose me. They contacted me. And I'm very appreciative. So I want to say thank you. And you can do that one of a couple of different ways. I wouldn't call. Only because typically agents don't want to spend the time on the phone unless it has something to do with a booking. So what I would do is either send an email, or if you feel like you want to do this, send them a letter through the U.S. mail. Or if you live in another country, it's not going to be the U.S. mail, because I know we do have people from around the world. So whatever mail system you guys use, do that. If you do send an actual letter, and I'm going to show you an example of this in 1 second, make sure you have your headshot on the top of the letter along with all of your contact information. Like, it's possible that the agent's working with a lot of people. They might not have spent much time with you. Maybe they saw your headshot connected with your name. They sent it off, and if you just send a letter, saying, "Hey, this is from Jane. Thank you so much for sending me," they might not make the connection right away. So make sure your photo is there and all of your contact information as well. So here's a good example of a cover letter, not the text itself, but the actual, what the letterhead should look like. And you can write your own little note, just thank you so much for thinking of me. It was great attending this GOSI. Looking forward to working with you again in the near future. Boom, that's it. Make it short, sweet, and to the point. And if your handwriting, like mine, is not very good, type it out, and just print it out this way. But it's a real good way of, letting the agent know you're appreciative of being sent out. Now, before your next GOSI, here is part of your homework assignment. You want to figure out your type. And what I mean by type, it's this. How are you going to be cast? Now, it's not necessarily who you are. You could be this wild flower child who's very free, but your look is a very conservative look. Maybe that's how you're really going to be cast. So regardless of who you actually are as a human being, you want to figure out who you are going to get cast as. That is what's crucial. And a lot of people find that they don't get representation, they don't get work, they don't get auditions, they don't get sent out on GOSIs. And it's not because they don't have an interesting look, it's not because they don't have the talent, it's because they've let their ego get in the way. So it's not just a matter of trying to put together the prettiest picture of yourself and have your agent submit that, but it's what shots are going to sell you the best. So for me, it's very clear, and I learned this early on in my career. I am the regular guy. Now, not to say that I can't do other things, and I have periodically, but typically, the majority of my work, I get cast as the doctor, the lawyer, the dad, the teacher, the scientist, the computer programmer, the therapist, I'm the psychotherapist, the psychiatrist, the principal, those are the general areas. The guy basically who you trust, somebody you like, somebody you feel comfortable with, somebody you would share personal information with, even if you really, haven't spent that much time with me. I do seem to have this kind of disarming openness to me. And once again, it's not necessarily how I am in real life, although actually in many ways those things are true. But what's most important is that's how I am viewed. And I know there are lots of models who are concerned, and actors, I don't want to get typecast. I don't want them only to see me this way. My feeling is, typecast me all you want. That means that they see me in a certain way. And as long as I am booking those kinds of jobs, I'm more than happy to get typecast. Like I did say, there are times where I do get an opportunity to do something a little bit different. Those are rare, they're fun, but I realize I have a certain look. I was born into this world with a certain look. I'm not going to be the head of the motorcycle gang most of the time. It's rare, like I said. Every once in a while, though. I was up for a role on a great TV show that unfortunately I didn't get, and it was a very different kind of character than what you're seeing right now. And I almost got it. So it wasn't, and I was in the right ballpark. I was being considered. It came down to a couple of us, and one got chosen and not me. So it told me that I could be seen in other areas. But figure out your type. So how do you do that? And once again, I don't want to spend that much time just talking about other um, workshops that I have recorded that are on the store page, but you should go there because there are some that just deal with marketing and learning how to figure out your type. But one of the things that you should definitely be doing is uh, go to a bookstore and go through tons of magazines. And you will see magazines on topics that you never even knew existed, but go through magazines that you could imagine yourself being in. So, for me, I'm going to go through business journals. It could be medical journals, medical type magazines. It could be Time, People, Newsweek, Sports. Well, I guess some of those are no longer around in paperback, but it could be Sports Illustrated, any kind of magazine that could potentially have ads in your particular category. And start looking at the ads. And when you find ads in there that you can honestly say, that's me, that's something that I could do. Not that you necessarily look like the model, but it's the right general area. Then that is your look. Then what you're going to do is make a copy of those ads and use those as a general idea for your next photo session. And then what you're going to do is practice getting those kinds of emotions, because when you attend a go-see, you are going to be asked to show those kinds of emotions. And the way that you're going to practice this is by thinking of, well, first on a sheet of paper, write down on the very top of the sheet the type of emotion. So let's say you are a student and you write down happy. Okay, and just like I said earlier, happy doesn't tell you very much, and then make it specific. You did well on an exam. You just got a scholarship for college. You just got accepted into medical school, whatever it is. Make it specific. And then you think of a real experience that will give you that emotion. It doesn't even have to be connected. When I do a multi-million-dollar lottery hit, well, how do I think of a real experience that will give me that kind of emotion? I've never hit, multi-million-dollar. I think I won $3 once, playing the lottery one time. So what I do is I think of a time period when I was playing a lot of serious baseball, and once again, to make a very long story short, I hit a grand slam, we win the game. When I hit home plate, this was in an all-star game, when I hit home plate and everybody's jumping up all over me, that is my multi-million-dollar lottery look. It's that same kind of feeling of just being overwhelmed and screaming and letting loose. And that's what I do. So I think of that as my experience. So the experience that you're thinking of doesn't have to be the exact experience, but it will give you a similar feel. That's what you want. And then just get anybody to take some shots of you on a cell phone. I'm not talking about professional shots. So what you're going to do is look away from the camera, say a word or two that will help trigger that emotion, look up, and then do 4, 5, 6, 7 shots on a cell phone. And then look at the pictures. And then you have to decide, do you really look like a student who's very happy because they got accepted into college? If it's real and it looks believable, you've got it. And every time you attend a go-see and they need that kind of look, you know exactly where to go. You're not just going in and winging it. You've got a very specific game plan, and you have a real strategy here, and that's what you're going to be doing. You look away, say a word or two, come up, do the shot. And if for some reason when you're doing these practice shots and they don't look real, they don't look believable, you look like a model, it looks like you're posing for the camera, then sometimes you have to think of a different experience to help tweak it a little bit until it is real. So basically, that's what you want to be doing. Everything from understanding the questions to ask the agent, preparing yourself, getting ready for the go-see, giving yourself plenty of time, showing up when you need to show up at the go-see, preparing again, make sure you fill out all the forms, paperwork, but you don't sign in until you're 100% ready. Ask the photographer what kind of look is needed. Look away, say a word or two, bring the look up to the camera, do whatever is needed. Do your follow-up work, thanking the agent, and continue to practice. And once again, like whether you book the job or not, that's not even the important thing. What's important is that you're getting the opportunity to be submitted and attending the GOSI, getting experience. And when there are a lot of people attending and they need one person, only one person's going to walk out of there with the booking. So certainly don't base not getting the job on your skills. You might have done a great job. Maybe you just weren't the right person for this. And you have no control over those kinds of things. But that's what you want to be doing. And that is what will be giving you your greatest chance for success at booking GOSIs, booking the jobs from attending a GOSI. So, Joel, this is where the workshop's going to be ending from my standpoint of view. If you are ready to start allowing people to ask questions at this point, more than happy to stick around as long as necessary to answer everybody's question.
Absolutely. In fact, if you have a question, the best way to do that, to ask one, is to raise your hand using a little icon. It looks like a hand with a green arrow pointing up on your GoToWebinar control panel. If for some reason you don't have a mic or you just don't want to talk live, you can type your question in the chat field, or in the question area, excuse me, and when you hit enter, that'll come to me, and then I can read that to Aaron. Aaron, we've got a few questions that came in already. Wanted to get right to those, and if more come in, we'll go there as well. So the first question comes from Sherry, and she writes this: when the person you are paired with as a spouse shows up 30 minutes late, soaking wet with sweat, and without previous preparation, grabs you from behind while the camera is rolling, and you know your face is showing the unwanted gestures, that you probably have lost the job. How do you handle that? Do you say something to the photographer or your agency?
Oh boy. Yeah, I've experienced those things as well. Not necessarily that exact way. And that's a great question. And this holds true whether it's an audition, like when you're talking about the camera rolling. I don't know if you're meaning this is for a film or a television commercial as opposed to a print job, but it's the same concept. And I've asked this question to some casting directors, and I'll share with you their responses. I guess the last time I experienced something like this, it wasn't they were dripping and grabbing me from behind and things like that. I was auditioning for something, and the person that I was reading with had apparently only done theater. That was their only acting experience. And they were probably very good, but they've only done theater work. And we're having a conversation, and the person is probably 2 feet away from me. And I'm talking to the person like this because we're having this conversation. And the other partner here, who's only done theater, is answering questions like this. And they're talking to me. And it's like I wanted to just like tap the person on the shoulder and say, excuse me, you really don't have to scream. I mean, I'm like right here. We're having this conversation. The microphone's right next to you. But they just didn't have a clue as to how to make that transition. So the same thing holds true in this situation where the person just was not prepared. They're doing things that's just were hurting your chances for getting the job. So the question that I asked the casting director was, would it be inappropriate for me? I mean, let's say once the person walked out, they said, we did the scene, thank you very much. I let the other person walk out ahead of me. Person walks out, I close the door and then turn around to the casting director and say, hey, would it be okay if I did that again with somebody else? And I asked, and they said, no, not appropriate at all. They said, look, we can see what you do, and if we feel like we want to bring somebody else in to read with you, we will. Otherwise, do your thing and let us watch you. So, and that's the same philosophy that I would share with you and answer your question. It's a tough situation, when somebody is sweating to death. Sometimes you try to use the other person's situation to your benefit. And once again, this is a go-see. So I have no idea what the product was and whether them sweating would be of any help in here or not, but my feeling is, let's just say, and I'm, making up this scenario, husband, wife, I don't know, the person's proposing to you, you guys are in love, and the person just looks a mess, might be smelly from, having run 10 blocks because they were running late or caught in the rain, whatever it is. I would just look at the person like you are madly in love, completely disregard what they actually look like in that situation, and maybe even have this smile in your face, this little twinkle in your eye, like the person, ran in the rain just to propose, even though it was very uncomfortable. So in some ways, you might even be able to use that to help propel your look and to make it even more special. But I do sympathize. It can be tough in those kinds of situations. But no, I wouldn't ask if you could do it with somebody else. Um, I would just do everything that you felt was right in there, and hopefully they will see you and, pair you up with somebody else for the actual job.
Fantastic. So, Stephanie has raised her hand. In fact, Cheryl also has raised her hand. Stephanie, I'm going to unmute you so you can go ahead and talk to us live on the air. Ask your question directly to Aaron. When I unmute, if you could just turn your speakers down a little bit lower just so we don't get any feedback, or put a set of headphones in case we're getting feedback, that'd be great. And just make sure your mic is ready. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now, and let's see if we can get you live on the air. Stephanie, are you there?
Hello?
Oh, is this Joe?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Joe. I know it said Stephanie and Joe. I just took the first name that I saw. So, hi, Joe. Do you have a question for Aaron?
Yes. We're bringing my daughter to New York in a week or so for the next 6 weeks, and we were wondering what would you recommend her wear to these shoots or go-sees?
Okay, that's a great question. And first of all, congratulations. That's going to be exciting going to New York.
Yes.
Sure. So here's what I would do. So I assume you're going to be living in New York for 6 weeks. You're not commuting from another city.
No, we're from Louisiana, so we found an apartment that we're going to rent out for 6 weeks, and
Okay, great. So what you want to do is have a wide variety, a lot of selections of different kinds of wardrobe. And be prepared. You might even find that once you get up there, you might have to purchase some other kinds of wardrobe if you find that you don't have what's being asked for. But basically, you're going to be sent out by an agent to a go-see. One of the questions you can always ask the agent is, hey, what do you think she should be wearing for the go-see? Let your agent help you decide what is appropriate for this particular go-see. The photographer might have worked with this company before. They might know more about the product than you do. And it would certainly be okay, as a student, depending on the kind of go-see it is, you can even ask your agent, hey, do you think, should we be bringing a knapsack? Should we bring any books? Are there any props that should be brought in? Or, should we just leave all that stuff at home? And let the agent help guide you. I mean, that's one of the things that you want your agent to do, with you. But, like I was saying earlier, probably the most important thing is don't dress inappropriately for the go-see. But after you ask the agent, a number of questions about what is this go-see for, then you'll be able to make some good decisions as to what would be the best kinds of wardrobe. I can also just tell you two other really quick things, and this holds true whether it's a go-see or whether you're setting up test shots for a composite sheet or for an agent's website. Just make sure that whatever is worn is not distracting, doesn't stand out too much, and be very careful with accessories. Sometimes people wear, large earrings or necklaces or just things that stand out, even things that might look great. That's part of the problem. You don't want people staring at anything else but you. So whatever you're wearing, nothing with heavy stripes or big patterns in them or logos or brand names. Make all of the wardrobe that you're wearing kind of look like nice wallpaper, where it enhances the image, but people aren't staring at it. So that's what I would suggest. And have a great time when you're in New York.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, thank you, Joe. And if you guys have more questions as they come up, just go ahead and raise your hand again. I can unmute you. Cheryl, I've got your hand raised, and I'd like to unmute you. Just want to make sure that your speakers are turned down where you still can hear them, but they're not giving any feedback. I'm going to go ahead and try to unmute Cheryl, and let's see how this works. Cheryl, are you there? Unfortunately, we have some static. Let's go right to the questions. I saw Cheryl type something in, actually. Okay, so she typed a question in that just says, hi, Aaron, do these basic ideas apply for an audition or film? For film. Audition for film. So the ideas you've been talking about for the Go-See, do these also apply for auditions,
Oh,
acting
okay.
auditions, I think?
Absolutely. I tell you, in a lot of situations, just I tell you where it is completely different, and I would never use this for an audition for film or TV. And the question is, so what are you looking for? I would never, 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 and let me just say one more time, never ask a casting director, hey, so what are you looking for? I do for commercial print because we're given really nothing. But for an audition for film or TV, that's our job. As an actor, it's our job to look at the sides, which is the short portion of the script that we are auditioning with, and it's up to us to make decisions as to what is going on in this character. Now, there are a couple, and once again, I've got a whole workshop just on auditioning, which you can look at, on my store page. But one of the questions that I would ask at an audition is if you're reading with another character, and let's assume this is a feature film. It's not a television show where you should know all the characters because you will have done your homework, you will have watched the show. But let's say it's a film, a feature film, an independent film, and you really have no idea who this other character is because they didn't give you the entire script. A very important question to ask the casting director is, what is my relationship with this character? Is this your mom? Is this your dad? Is this an ex-wife, somebody you're angry with, somebody you're competing with, somebody you're envious of? That is a crucial question, but it's up to the actor to look at the sides, to analyze it, and figure out who you want this character to be. So that is the one area where I would say absolutely not. It's very different than when you're attending a Go-See. But all the other things of, figuring out how you're going to play this, making sure the wardrobe, is right for the part, making it believable. Sure, all those things are hold true for both.
Cheryl just clarified, Aaron, sorry about this. She just said, I was referring to the expressions for the character. So, Cheryl, I'm guessing you're talking about the recall method potentially. I'm not exactly sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess one of the differences, if you're talking about film or TV, the expressions have to be they have to be scaled down. They have to be smaller. Not to say they're less intense in any way, but you have to remember when you're auditioning for a film, your face could be the size to fill up an entire screen. Whereas for a commercial modeling job, depending on the job itself, sometimes they do need very subtle kinds of looks. Sometimes they need, like, when you're hitting that lottery, there's nothing subtle. It's going to be very over the top. But you know what? And I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things that I always say to a photographer when I'm on the set is, after I get the information, they tell me what they're looking for, and I have, a very specific idea of what to show and share in front of the camera. Then what I'll say to the photographer is this: look, I'm going to start off small, very subtle kinds of expressions, and throughout the session, I'm going to start building things up. I'm going to make them bigger because I want to give them a lot of choices because they might not be sure how big or how small they want the expressions to be. And I'll let the photographer kind of dictate how big they want the expression to look. And if I'm doing things that are, way over the top, the photographer might really like it, or the photographer might say, why don't you just try to bring it down a little bit? Because the photographer is going to know much, much more about the product, about the client, what they're looking for, the feel of the ad, and and things like that. So that is very, very different. For film and TV, less is always more. You've got to show less, but once again, I want to clarify. When I say showing less, doesn't mean you look dead. It means you're saying a lot, and it's just shooting out of your eyes. But yeah, in most cases, depending on the project, if it's a slapstick comedy, of course, then things are going to be really big. But for any kind of dramatic work, the less you do, the better.
Okay, great. Thanks, Aaron. So we got a couple more questions that have come in here. Joe raised his hand. Let's go to Joe real quick while I get these other questions together. Joe, you there? Joe, can you hear me?
Mr. Aaron, couple. Yeah, can I? I'm good. Hello.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, all right. A couple questions here. As parents, when we go to these go-sees, what would you recommend us? Where would we, or how should we kind of be there, but out of the way, kind of
Sure.
deal?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, and I'm really glad you asked that question. One of the complaints that I hear from managers and agents of children are the parents don't let the kids do the work. And even like when you're, and I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but I think it's helpful for people to hear. Um, if you are sitting down, let's say you're interviewing an agent or a manager, and you want to talk with them about representation or management, sometimes parents have a, basically they have a tendency to do all the talking. The manager might ask the child, so what kind of things do you like to do? And then all of a sudden the parent jumps in, well, I mean, Jeff, he loves to color, he loves bowling, and they start explaining. And the manager says, oh, I'm not talking to you. I'm asking your son. So basically, you have to kind of do a role reversal when you are either meeting with an agent or a manager, or you're at an audition or a go-see. You want to be there, to help support your child, but you don't want to do anything other than that. Let your child do the work. So typically, when I've gone to go-sees and there are parents there, because there are kids involved in this particular ad, the parents, they walk in with the child. Depending on the age of the child, the parents might fill out, the forms, and then the parents sit. And then when the child is ready to go in and have their picture taken, the parents just sit in the waiting room. And the child goes in, they have their picture done, and then they walk back out and see the parent. Because a lot of times, too, the kids will feel more free, less nervous if the parent is not watching them during the casting itself. So be supportive. Drive them there, walk them there. If you do need to fill out the paperwork and your child's either too young or their handwriting will be horrible, they don't have the information, you fill that stuff out. But let your child do the work.
Perfect. And the second question, going back to the statement you made about being selective on what go-sees you do, feeling comfortable doing the go-sees. Now, my daughter's 4, and we're new to this business. And, at what point do you say, don't kind of hold her back on doing certain stuff, or, let her do everything and anything possible and go from there?
Yeah, and I think that's important too. Look, as a parent, just like you would not allow your child to do certain things that you think would be harmful, from a physical point of view, also from a mental point of view. There is somebody that I know, and once again, I know I'm kind of jumping from modeling to acting, but there's a parent I know whose child was asked to audition for a scene in a movie that was pretty brutal. And in this particular scene, the mother of this child, not the real mother, but the character was murdered in this particular scene, and the kid, just freaks out and is screaming and is terrified. And the parents just say, you know what, I don't want my kid doing that. Because they know, look, there are some kids that would be fine. They're either mature enough, they get it, they understand, they're acting. You have to know your child as well. And for this particular situation, the parents knew that their child would have a tough time, dealing with that. So they turned that down. And the other thing too is, whether it's religious beliefs, certain things you don't want to be promoting, or if it's just, a family belief for certain kinds of things, I think that's fine for you to make that kind of decision for your child. Look, when they're older, you can have more discussions, but at that age, really, it's your call. And I think those are important kinds of talks to have with your representation as well. So that way everybody's on the same page. And I'm not saying you walk in and sit down with your agent and say, look, my child's not going to do this, 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 and this. That's probably not a great way to do it, because most of the time those situations won't even come up. But if they do, I think it is really important to explain to the agent why you feel that way. But that's really your call as a parent. And look, it sounds like you're doing a lot of really good things for your child. Certainly you're being very supportive, you're getting the information for your child, and I think it's fine for you to make that final decision, especially at age 4.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Hey, thanks, Joe, for asking these questions. These are really great. I want to go over to Gail, Aaron. Gail asks, is a model more likely to get better or more opportunities for bookings if they are union members as opposed to non-union members?
Okay, that's a good question as well. Here's the interesting thing. There is no union for modeling. There is an association in the fashion world, but it's not a union. It's just an association. In the commercial modeling world, there is no union, and there is absolutely zero correlation between the union and any kind of modeling. So you can be a member of SAG-AFTRA, which is the Screen Actors Guild, and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, which merged in March of 2012. And they really don't care what kind of job you do. If it's an acting job, they do, but for a modeling job, they could care less. So it really doesn't make any difference whether you are a union member, whether you're not a union member when it comes to modeling. The only place where it could possibly have any kind of effect is if they know that this is going to be a major ad campaign and kind of run the gamut from commercial modeling, a print ad in a magazine, a newspaper, or is it also going to be seen as part of a TV commercial? Is it going to be used on the internet? That is where union affiliation will kick in, and it could work either way. The company might want to hire somebody who's a union member. The company might want to hire somebody who's not union. So there's really no way of knowing about that end of it. But as far as the modeling jobs go, it makes absolutely no difference at all whether you're union or non-union.
Okay, fantastic. Cheryl raised her hand again. Let me just try her one more time here to see if we can get her online. Cheryl, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. And Cheryl, you there? Oh. I feel bad because she really wants to talk, and I can't seem to be able to get her to do the audio here. I apologize, Cheryl. It just comes through as complete static on our end. If you want to type your question in, feel free, and I can read more of those. Okay, so she does type a question in. Sometimes I self-submit for jobs. If I get an audition, should I send a thank you note to my casting director?
Sure, I think that's okay to do. Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much for giving me the it was great getting a chance to audition with you. Look forward to working with you again in the near future.
Uh, it,
Absolutely.
and Aaron, in fact, we got another question from Dave that kind of goes along the same vein. He says you mentioned sending a thank you note to your agent. What about the photographer? He asks.
Yeah, I guess it's the kind of thing where if you have any kind of relationship with the photographer, you've seen the photographer before, I think that's fine. I mean, look, if you're one of literally 100 people, um, I guess it couldn't hurt. But the key thing is make sure your face is seen in that letter. So that way, because I can tell you, look, when I'm in New York and there are, just so many people attending a go see, if I sent a thank you note, if I didn't have my face there, they would have no idea who I was unless I had some kind of contact with the person previously. But as I'm thinking about it, sure, send them a note. Once again, don't call them. And I don't even know that I would send an email to the photographer because then they would just get inundated with emails. But sending a letter through the mail, sure, or a postcard or something. Hey, thanks so much. Because look, that's how you connect yourself. Maybe they'll think of you again, because of that, if you have the right look. So sure, I would definitely do that.
Hey, here's a quick question from Jen in Toronto. Actually, a really good question. Do you recommend people wear makeup while attending a go see?
Oh, that is a good question. Um, you've got to be very careful with that. You want to make sure that you are very, very cleanly seen. They can see your face very clearly. If you're going to be doing really light makeup just to maybe take some of the shine off of your face, sure. And for kids, typically you don't do any kind of makeup, but you don't want to put on any kind of serious makeup because they want to be able to see your face.
Okay, great. Let's squeeze in two more questions here before we wrap up. The two last questions, and if you do have a question as we're answering these, get at it quickly because we're going to wrap up for the day. But this comes from Curtis in Texas. Curtis asks, "Are you ever able to book a job without attending a go see?"
Oh, that is a good question. Absolutely. Depending on the market, there are some areas where they don't even have that many go-sees. And that's why your photos are so crucial because either the photos on your agent's website or your composite sheet, sometimes that is how you're going to get work. So, sure, people get booked all the time without attending a go-see. What some people will ask though, because sometimes models have photos on their comp card that are so old that they no longer look like that picture, and that can be very dangerous. Um, and so sometimes the photographer wants to make sure that the photos they're looking at on the comp card or on the agent's website are up to date, which absolutely is essential. So sometimes they might even just ask, hey, take your phone, shoot a digital shot today. Let me just see what you look like. They just want to make sure you still look like the person that they are looking at. But sure, people get booked all the time without having to attend a go see.
Fantastic. Okay. And then last question for today. Lee from Pennsylvania says, "How long does it normally take to find out if you booked the go see, like booked from the go see?"
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, it's in some ways it's just like with an audition. There's no way of knowing. And if you have a shoot date, if you know when they're going to shoot, if let's say the go see was today and they're shooting it in 3 days, well, if you didn't hear, in 2 days, you didn't get the job. I'm like I completely understand it, but agents typically will never contact an actor or a model to say that sorry you didn't get it. Typically, you only hear from them if you did book the job. And as a recommendation, I wouldn't contact an agent and say, "Hey, just was calling up, wanted to find out if you got any information about the go see that I went on last week," because once again, the agents don't want to spend so much time on the phone just answering those kinds of questions. So normally you would hear pretty quickly, if you get booked for the job. But I can also tell you this once again. This holds true for both go-sees and auditions for acting jobs. There are times when you do that. You go to the go-see and you think, all right, well, I didn't book it, but they had to postpone the job for some reason, and maybe the job, I don't know, was postponed for a month, and so you've completely forgotten about it. You figured, well, I didn't get it because they didn't call me. And then all of a sudden you get an email from, the photographer, or I mean, from the agent, or you get a phone call saying, hey, guess what? You booked the job. And you think, "What? I did that thing like a month ago." Yeah, well, they decided, or things got postponed. Maybe you were the second choice, and maybe the first choice had to back out for some reason. That stuff happens too. So unfortunately, there is no timetable as to know when you should hear from the agent by. And that's why, I mean, the best thing to do, if you can, I understand it's hard. You attend to go see and you really want this job and you're excited, and you're every time the phone rings, you're thinking, oh, maybe this is the agent. And believe me, I still do that sometimes for some projects. But the best thing to do is to do it. Think about what took place afterwards. Were there any changes you would like to have made? Were there things you would have done differently next time around? Make a note about it, and then just let it go, and just go on to the next go see. Because the fact is, there are just too many factors that go into booking and not booking the job, and just thinking about the phone calls all the time, it can just make you crazy. So, but like I said, having said that, like when it's something really special, yeah, you do kind of think about it, but there is no way of knowing.
Okay. I had said we're going to end.
Actually, hey, you know what? Let me just jump.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Hey, Joel, I just wanted to jump in for 1 second. And I know that maybe I shouldn't be giving out this information, but I'm going to say it anyway. Let's just say it's a really important job for you. You really want this thing. You went to the go see, but you don't want to call the agent to say, hey, did I book the job? Because typically the agents are going to say, look, if you booked the job, I would have called you. Here's something that I have done, and once again, I'm a little hesitant about doing it, but I do want to share this with you. If you have another reason to call the agent or to email the agent, like for instance, hey, I just wanted to send you an email and let you know, I just finished taking this class. I just wanted to send you a note to say, um, I put together, some new photos. I'm thinking about putting together some new photos. Wanted to see if you had any suggestions. Oh, hey, and by the way, did they ever make any decisions from that go see for that particular job? So you kind of slide the question in sideways a little bit. And I have to admit, I have done that a couple of times. Uh, if you're really kind of going nuts about it and you really want to find out and at least be able to put it to rest and know, okay, they already cast it, it's done, you're not getting it. That would be one way to do it, but without a doubt, you do not want to just contact the agent and say, hey, did they make a decision yet? Because the agents don't want those kinds of calls or emails. All right, sorry, Joe. I just wanted to jump in with that one.
Oh, no worries. No, I'm glad you shared that. I know I'd said that last two questions, but I do want to try to squeeze two more in. Joe just raised his hand again, and then Cheryl asked another question, and then I really will wrap this up after those two. I just wanted to get to everybody if we can. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Joe. Joe, your question for Aaron?
Okay, this is the last one. I'm sorry. At this age for my daughter, how when is enough is like for the go sees? How many do you book, or how many wouldn't you book? Not you don't want to push her, but you don't want to take her out of the broadening her look. You know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. Hey, look, here's the way that I view it. I view attending a go see, or trying to work in the acting and modeling industry, especially for kids, as any other extracurricular activity. And like for my kids, they were heavily involved in sports. That's what they did. I really didn't think that either one was going to make their living as a professional athlete, but I knew that it was something that gave them a tremendous amount of enjoyment. Not to say there weren't difficult things too. Some painful moments that people experience in sports. Um, just like with acting and modeling, there are things about the business that sometimes are tough, but they're all great learning experiences. And so I simply allowed my kids to continue to do sports as long as they were enjoying themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes if something, difficult came up and they, wanted to quit, and I just said, okay, well, that's fine, you can quit. Now, that I didn't do. I didn't want them to quit just because something was difficult. But for, the acting and modeling, look, there are no specific percentages of what your booking to go see ratio should be. And look, some people might be able to give you numbers. I've never experienced it in my life, and if somebody says to you, well, you can pretty much bank on booking one job for every 20 go sees. I don't know where they're coming up with those numbers from because they're not based on good scientific research. Sometimes an agent might get a phone call about a go see that is not right for your child, but they want to send a lot of different people in just in case they decide to change their mind and look for somebody else. Well, so you're going in there, you're really not going to book this job. And they do wind up booking the look that they initially had. And if you're trying to base results on numbers, well, here's a good example. You went to a go see, you didn't book the job, and your batting average just went down. So that's why, honestly, I wouldn't even consider trying to figure out, well, after 20 go sees, if I didn't book a job, I think maybe that's it. I would really use your child as the barometer. Let your child, let you know when the interest has just gone away. And once again, I'm not saying that you should just, pull your child out when your child says, nah, boy, those people scared me in there. I really don't want to do this anymore. Well, that's something else because then once again, it's an interesting learning experience. So, but I think just in general, as long as your child is having a good time, is enjoying him or herself, and please, don't put any kind of pressure. And I'm not saying that you would do that, but I have seen that where the parents are trying to coach their kids before the go see or the audition and come on, let's do those lines again, let's keep doing those lines. It's like the kid just wants to have a good time and play, and they've already practiced and they've already prepared. Let your child tell you when it's really time to stop doing it. As long as they're having a good time and they're keep doing it, because there are so many invaluable lessons that can be learned from not only a child but from an adult and with your relationship with your child by going through this process together.
So, Joe, hopefully that answered your question. And
Thank you. That answers the question. Yes.
great.
Good.
Hey, thanks, man, for being so involved today and asking so many questions. We really appreciate it and being a part of that. Okay, quick question from Cheryl, and then we really will wrap up, Aaron, after we're done with this question. If you just want to kind of close us out, give us some closing words, and then I got a few things I want to say. But Cheryl asks, how do I know the look I'm portraying is the best look for me, such as the hairstyle I wear?
I'm sorry. Would you say that one more time?
Sure. How do I know if the look I am portraying is the best look for me, such as a hairstyle?
Okay. Well, I tell you what I would do is, and I think that's a really good question. You will be able to tell what kind of look is good for you by looking at magazine ads and looking at the people in your category and see what kind of hairstyles people have. And not to say that everybody's going to have the exact same hairstyle, but you can see what is right for today's time period and what kind of looks the models are using that are getting booked for jobs, and what decisions the makeup artists and the hairstylists are making with models while they are, actually working on the set. And that's what I would go by. Um, you know, there are certain, not to say that it's going to be a cookie cutter kind of look, but there are certain styles that are popular today. And that's what I would use. And the other thing too is whenever you're putting together, ideas for photos, for new photos, and you're thinking about wardrobe and styles, show them to some agents. If you're working with an agent, sit down with the agent and say, look, here's some ideas that I have. If it's a manager, talk to the manager. If you know of a commercial photographer, ask the photographer if he or she has some suggestions or ideas, or a headshot photographer. And you can always try to get feedback from other people. But really, when you do your research, you're going to find all this incredible information that will really teach you who is being cast today and what they look like.
All right, awesome. Well, everyone, the recording of this event, if you're tuning in live and you're waiting for the recording, will be available mid next week. I'll send out links to that. You can watch that again and again at your leisure. Also, we have several season pass members who are on today viewing us because they purchased the season pass for this year. If you'd like more information about that, you can find out more information on the website about the season pass. What it does is it gets you access to all the workshops we do during a season for one low tuition price, and it's really the best way to consume all of this content because we have multiple workshops, usually about one workshop a month that Aaron runs, dealing with different parts of the acting and modeling industry. So it's really a great value, and it's a great way to join us. And I know many people have already taken us up on that season pass, and so I would definitely recommend, if you haven't done that, to check that out as well. If you'd like to get a free gift, we've got a free gift. Aaron has a gift called What Not to Do at a Go-See. It's a short video he'd like to give you, and simply, there's a real easy way to get this. If you head over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/howtomodel, leave a comment about what you learned today. Give us some feedback, a testimonial about what this workshop did, what you learned, what action steps you're going to take, something that was really powerful or insightful you got out of this. And if you leave a comment over there, I'll share the link to watch that video with you, What Not to Do at a Go-See, which is a really powerful free gift that Aaron wants to give you for leaving us a comment on the Facebook page. Again, that's facebook.com/howtomodel. In fact, while you're there, make sure you like the page if you haven't yet. We've got a thriving and growing community of industry professionals, other actors and models, casting directors, coaches. I mean, it's just incredible, the information and the network of people that are at the Facebook page, and Aaron hangs out there daily answering questions and giving feedback and having discussions with people, so it's really a great resource. Speaking of online resources, howtomodel.com is really the go-to place, the launching pad for everything Aaron offers. You can get a copy of his book. You can find out more about the different workshops that are coming live, potentially to your city, or the online workshops this year, the season pass. All the previous online workshops we've already recorded are in a store section on that site. And also, I want to mention, if you're interested in working with Aaron one-on-one, now Aaron's a professional actor and model, so he's out on go-sees and auditions all the time. He's working on jobs and films and TV commercials and other things, but he does have some time during the month, a few slots each month, to work with people like yourself one-on-one online using kind of a Skype or an online video, so you guys can work together and he can answer and tailor his answers directly to your needs or your child's needs or whatever during those sessions. You can find out more information about that on the website, or you can just send him an email. His email address is Aaron, AARON, @howtomodel.com. In the subject line, just put on there one-on-one coaching or private coaching. And again, it's very limited, but he does work with some people one-on-one through that coaching. So if you're interested in that, make sure you take advantage of that as well. Thanks, everyone, for being on here. This is a fantastic session. And Aaron, thank you so much once again for being our host and giving us such incredible information and such incredible advice in the industry. I know people have used this for massive success in their careers already, and I'm really excited to see how the people today and the people watching the recording begin to use this information as well. So thank you, Aaron, and thanks everybody for being here today.
You're very welcome. It was a lot of fun for me.
Okay. We'll see everybody later. Have a great day.